Jamil.
Right now.
Free Imam 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 Jamil.
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 Right now.
Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil. Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil.
Now.
Free Imam Jamil. Free Imam Jamil. Free Imam Jamil. Free Imam.
Raise your hand if you know what SNCC means. You see, all the older people know what SNCC is. You young people, you see, back some decades ago, we had something called a tape player, you know. We had like a thing called a cassette. And you put that cassette in a tape player. And you had this group called SNCC, which is the SNCC, which meant the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
We call it the SNCC.
We call it SNCC. So I'd like to introduce Connie Curry, a veteran activist, an alumni of SNCC, an Atlantan, a wonderful lady. Go ahead, Connie. Right into the mic. Come on. Let's go.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. It's also sad in many ways. I met, like Vincent, I met Rap Brown at the closing days of SNCC, and I knew Ed Brown, his brother, when Ed was working in Mississippi in the 60s. The thing that makes me so sad about where we are right now is that I went to every single day of Jamil's trial here in Atlanta, and it was just really a farce. It was embarrassing. And we went, you know, the whole day. The jury was a joke. I think there were 8 or 9 black people on the jury, and there were some of us who felt like getting up and saying, if it weren't for Jamil, you people wouldn't even be on the jury. You know, because he worked so hard in voter registration in Selma and in Alabama and everything. But the trial, as has been mentioned, was really, really shameful. The judge treated the jury like they were her little children and called them her something bizarre. The guy, one of the FBI agents, I believe, who followed him to Alabama, I was told by Bob Mance of SNCC and also another person down there that this FBI agent had his foot on Jamil's neck, and if the black sheriff of Lowndes County hadn't come along, probably would have shot him, and were prepared to say that Jamil was trying to run. The other thing, those of you who know Jamil, knows that he would not. They found the gun, you know, the supposed gun that shot the guy, by a car that in Lowndes County, Alabama. Now, Jamil's going to drive from Atlanta over 3 rivers and then accidentally drop the murder gun by his car in Lowndes County. I mean, the whole thing is just preposterous. And what you need to remember is this was right after 9/11. So Jamil was caught in just this great, great whirlpool of crazy stuff that was going on. And then when he was, Andy Young and Cleve Sellers and a whole bunch of us testified because, you know, they were asking for the death penalty after this absolutely ridiculous trial. And then when he was sentenced to Reidsville, I would go down there. I knew I'd gone to law school for something. I've never been in court, but I could get into prisons to see people. So I got in to see Jamil once, and I never will forget, you know, I'd go into the room to see him, and he'd say, "Hey, Connie, how are you?" And I said, you know, there he is in prison. I said, "No, how are you?" It was always so upbeat and so wonderful. And I got to know Karima, of course, and I had this little place down on the ocean near that used to belong to Penn Center, a black community center down there, and I'm happy to say that Jamil and Karima and their son went to that little beach cottage when things were going better, so I feel very close to him and the family. but it is absolutely, I am irate that they would come and pick him up from Reedsville without telling his family, without telling anybody, and transfer him to this Supermax, which is heresy in Colorado. And we need to get him out and get him back here, but then we need to get him free. And that's what the double mission is. Today we're here, to protest him being the agreement where we figured out that you state and me, all of us who are citizens of Georgia, we've been paying the federal government probably way over $100,000 to pay for his expenses out in Colorado. That's taxpayers' money. So we get taxpayers' money. That's right. So we've got a lot to work on, and I'm so glad that I can be here. And we have got to stick together to get him back and out. Thank you.
From Zaytuna College out there in California, we have my personal friend and one of the more prominent Islamic leaders of North America, one of the founders of one of the first Islamic universities in America. I go way back with Imam Zaid Shakir. I'm very proud to say that I've known him since the 70s, the late 70s, shortly after his conversion to Islam. And so he's been a very important figure. He won't say it, but I'll say it. He's one of the really important movers in our community here, promoting an intellectual and studious and root knowledge in original Arabic language from the sources of Islam. He's one of the people that promotes the study of the Islamic religion from the root Arabic sources, and he's been a friend of mine. He came across the country twice to perform the marriages for my daughters. This is one of the few handful of mentors in my life. I'd like you to bring a nice Atlanta welcome. He's from Atlanta. He's from Atlanta originally. It's Imam Zaid Shakir. All right.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace. Welcome to everyone. Before saying anything, I'd like to thank all of the organizers. The few I know, anytime you start naming names, you're going to forget somebody. So if I don't mention your name, it's not because of lack of respect. It's owing to a lack of knowledge and ignorance. But I do know that Maurice Salakhan was working very hard on this program. I'm sure he's somewhere. Brother Salakhan, let's give him a hand, a takbir. Imam Khalil Abdul Rahim, working hard on this program. Give him a big hand, a takbir. Imam Jamil's wife, Sister Karima, Attorney Karima, is working hard on this program. Give her a double takbir for her hard work and her patience. And many, many others. I'm not living in Atlanta currently. I did live in Carver Homes until 3rd grade. And then we moved up north. So I do have my mother is one of 13 children, and her side of the family, they're here in Atlanta. Every 4 years we have our family reunion here. This summer our family reunion is here in Atlanta. So I have a lot of relatives here. May Allah Ta'ala, Almighty God, bless everyone for coming out. Someone asked me why I'm here. And, I'll be the first to admit my shortcoming and not doing enough for Imam Jamil. But when the call was made to be out here, I'll tell you the #1 reason that I'm here, because I know if the situation was reversed, Imam Jamil would be out here for me. And he'd be out here for any one of us. So the least we could do is to be out here for him. If any one of us was transferred out of our state and we were not a federal prison, he would be raising his voice to ensure that we are brought back to our state. Imam Jamil was a voice for the voiceless. Back in the 60s, when a lot of people were afraid to speak up, Imam Jamil was speaking up. And he was speaking up so vocally and so powerfully, they started calling him rap. because he was not hesitant to speak up for the voiceless. He was not hesitant to be an advocate for people who have been disenfranchised. And so now that his voice has been taken away from the community, now that he has been, in a sense, disenfranchised, it's up to all of us to speak up for him and to organize for him. We have to organize, brothers and sisters. And organizing is not something complicated. It's not rocket science. It starts with just telling people we know what we know and encouraging them to get involved. That's where it starts. All of us know hundreds of people. If this rally is held in 3 months, each and every one of us should commit to bring 10 people. I will personally commit. I'll bring 20 people if we hold a similar rally in 2 or 3 months. And each and every one of us should make a similar commitment. And if we hold it in a year, we should bring 100 people with each. We all have networks. I said, my mother is one of 13 children. I have hundreds of cousins here in Atlanta. And if I can't bring 100 people here, something's wrong with me. We have to organize. And more importantly, we have to move beyond organization to institutionalizing. We have to build institutions. And there's nothing to talk about at a rally. But those of us who are in a position to begin to institutionalize our ideas, that's an obligation we have, because the likes of Imam Jamil is confronting institutionalized strength. He's not confronting a few random individuals. He's confronting institutions such as the American justice system. He's confronting institutionalized imperialism. He's confronting institutions that want poor people to remain poor, that want disenfranchised people to remain disenfranchised, because those institutions benefit from that poverty, they benefit from that disenfranchisement. And so we have to develop institutions that can push back. And as Dr. Harding says, this is the work of a lifetime. This is the work of a lifetime. Some of you young people, if you feel within your heart that you want to make a difference, then prepare to go the distance. Prepare to go the distance. Activism, organizing, institution building is not a sprint. You don't go all out for 100 meters and the race is over. It's a marathon. So you get a good pace. You get a good pace. You see where they put the water bottles up ahead so you can grab and refresh yourself, and you get ready for a long race. So brothers and sisters, this is only the beginning of the race. When Imam Jamil comes back to Georgia, that's only a stage in the race. And as it was stated by those who preceded me, then the next stage begins for the appellate process to make sure that the defense is adequately financed so that the information, the confessions, all of those things that would exonerate Imam Jamil are allowed into the trial the second time around, and there will not be a second travesty that reflects the first one. So brothers and sisters, to do that, we have to amplify our voices, we have to organize ourselves, we have to reach into our pockets. It takes money. We have to reach into other people's pockets. Because it takes money. And we have to be courageous because it takes courage. And if we can do those things, inshallah ta'ala, sooner, inshallah, rather than later, we won't be rallying for Imam Jamil. We'll be going down to that beach house with Imam Jamil.
I'm on the board of directors of WRFG, but I do have a program, Just Peace. And I have been so honored over the years to interview the great Ed Brown, our Atlantic hero who we lost just this past year, the brother of H.R.A.P. Brown, Jamil Al Amin. Now, during the trial, we worked closely with Ed to do what we could to get information out to the community here in Atlanta and around the country of the great history of H. Brown, Jamil Al Amin, an amazing person. I remember once when I was interviewing, I don't know if you all know, Wendell Paris, who was one of the folks who worked with Jamil during the 1960s in Alabama. And as I was interviewing Wendell, this is during the trial now, I was interviewing Wendell and folks were saying, tune into WRFG, you have to hear this guy. It was amazing the work that they did in Alabama to challenge white supremacy and Jim Crow overall. It was just amazing. Now, I am also blessed to work at the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund. And we work with farmers across the South. And we have a training center in Alabama where Jamil would stay every now and then during that 60s period and into the 1970s. I think that one of the things we've also not mentioned here today is that we know that when Jamil has been in prison, he has had such a profound impact on the inmates in those prisons. And I've heard it doesn't matter where he was, whatever prison he was in, right? I heard that when he was first in prison in this last situation in Alabama, the inmates just clamored around him because he had so much wisdom to share. We heard that when he was in Reidsville, that he transformed so many people's lives. People have so much respect for this man. And then we also heard, of course, that prior to his move to Florence, this unlawful move to Florence, Colorado, that the inmates in Reidsville and elsewhere around the state had said they wanted him to be the Imam for Muslim prisoners throughout the state of Georgia. And it's obvious that the state of Georgia did not appreciate that. They don't appreciate the great influence and respect that this man deserves from the inmates everywhere, whether they're Muslim or not, I might add. He had a profound influence also on the white inmates in Reidsville, you all need to know. So I'm honored to be here today with this distinguished list of speakers. I have been blessed to have known and continue to know, of course, the family, the Brown family. Valinda, Ed's wife, is here today somewhere. She was here, and also Karima. They're just a beautiful, beautiful family. And I agree with the previous speakers that we absolutely need to do everything we can to bring Jamil out of Florence, Colorado, and back to Georgia where all of his family and friends are. This is outrageous. We do have a lot of work that all of us need to do. Now, I'm with the press. We send out a lot of press releases all over the country and in the Atlanta press. You know it's hard to get the press out to these things. We have some people here today and we're blessed for that. But we need to do a heck of a lot more education, a lot more organizing, all of us do. So I look forward to the next event, the next rally, and the ongoing work that all of us are going to continue doing in the years to come. And hopefully we'll get Jamil back in soon, right? Right?